All right, thank you all for your patience with that. I would like to call the special meeting of the Target School Committee to order for June 6, 2023 at 5 p.m. Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Fenello. Here. Ms. Carney. Here. Mr. Charbonneau. Ms. Doobie. Here. Ms. Fernandez. Here. Ms. Grant. Here. Mr. Shalala.
Yeah, may I ask everyone to stand for the pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Issues, public participation for anyone that might be late, please come up and sign up if you would like to talk in public participation. Also, public participation will happen at the desk, please. Don't be shy, come on up. And the first person up, Masha, and then then before we begin, I apologize. We're gonna limit it to 4 minutes for each public participant. I'm going to get to the microphone. You ready?
Good evening. Good evening to my fellow school committee members, acting superintendent Mercer, superintendent candidate Ms. Royale and Ms. Monica McNeil, and this very large crowd of educators here tonight. If I knew this was all it took to get you ready to come to one of our meetings, we would have done this alone. I am.
Get them walk around.
I just want to look at them. Because I feel like my back is everybody. I can see like this, I can see everybody. I stand before you tonight to speak to the decision I made to make a motion to bring the original 4 superintendent candidates before this committee. A motion that passed 5-2 on May 25th. Since that day, it has been brought to my attention that some members of the superintendent search committee are both publicly and behind the scenes making claims that making that motion was disrespectful to the search committee. Of biggest concern to some of the members is that one of the candidates recommended by the search committee withdrew their application after hearing about the passing of this motion. Although defending my decision is not in any way necessary, I welcome the opportunity to explain why I made this decision. For those of you that are not aware of what this discussion is about or need to be reminded of what happened, let me quickly catch you up. The superintendent search committee was tasked with reviewing resumes and applications, voting on applicants to move on to the interview process, checking references, voting on candidates to recommend to the school committee, and to recommend, candidates to recommend to the school committee. The fact that this was only a recommendation was made very clear to all members of the superintendent search committee throughout the process. It was also made clear that the 7 members of the school committee would have the final say in the appointment of the superintendent. I would like to acknowledge what a major undertaking this was for the entire subcommittee, especially the superintendent search chair. I understand the amount of time and effort that was put into this process because I too was a member of this subcommittee, devoting many hours to the process in addition to my other responsibilities. Process in which I am extremely pleased that I was part of. It became very clear early on that this process, that personal and professional biases would play a role in who this subcommittee would recommend be our next superintendent. Although all committee members did not always agree, in my opinion, the group was able to have respectful conversation throughout the process, and more importantly, we all got to know each other a little better. The group voted to recommend only 2 of the 4 interviewed candidates to the school committee through a majority rule vote. As I stated in the May 25th school committee meeting, In my opinion, I do not feel we found our next superintendent. I stated that I felt that the school board needed to look at these candidates again, as well as the other two candidates that were interviewed. All school committee meetings are recorded and can be viewed on YouTube if you are interested in hearing my exact words and the full discussion. And I respectfully ask that those of you that are gonna come up here and speak, please don't interrupt when I'm speaking, because I think that's just rude. Just speak through to all of it.
1 minute.
When the question about diversity during the interviews, which were held in public session and can also be viewed online, one of the candidates stated that they were coming from a school district that was 91% white. They also stated that it was important that the other 9% saw teachers that looked like them. Which I completely agree with. However, I also feel that that 9%, or in the case of Pawtucket, over 68% of non-white students should not only see teachers that look like them, they should also see administrators that look like them. Just a quick, very important side note. We have 16 schools in the Pawtucket School District. We have not one black or brown principal.
10 seconds.
I cannot express enough how much I personally value our educators. Many of you who I've known for many years and know I have not only advocated for students, but educators as well. Our white and non-white students need to see they are worthy of all opportunities in education, from educators to administrators. Given the multitude of important issues and strong personalities in our school district, it is crucial that Pawtucket's next superintendent of schools is a leader that has the tenacity to move our extremely diverse district forward despite pressure from outside influences. This leader must be someone that is going to make decisions that are best for the students, educators, and taxpayers of the city, despite the pressure and conflict they will face, because they will be the face of this school district. Thank you.
Marlena? Let me wait till you're ready before I say.
Yep, no problem. Let me get ready.
That's right, that was.
Also brought a stand if they want to stand.
Go ahead.
Hello, many of you know me as Marlene Martin-Sokoviak. I am a member of the Pawtucket City Council for District 6. But more importantly, really probably the most important, is I am the mother of 2 young boys in our school system. Those 2 boys in their future education is why I was so happy to be a part of the superintendent search committee for the city. Because the person that will become our next superintendent matters to their future. As a busy working mom, I spent 4 weeks with members of the committee vetting candidates, calling referrals, discussing the type of candidate we were looking for, because all of that matters. I believe we did our job well and delivered great finalists for this committee to continue to vet. Then the school committee, led by one of the search committee members, decided that all that work we had done wasn't enough, and those 4 weeks hadn't produced the right candidate. Now, as a committee, you have decided to bring back some of the candidates that the search committee had come to the conclusion were not the right fit for the position currently. But one of those finalists that we had sent was the only candidate to get a unanimous vote to move forward for your consideration. 2 of those votes coming from members of the school committee. And in comparison, one of the candidates you brought back to interview was brought up for a vote twice and failed to get enough support to be a finalist by the search committee both times. Now, let me say this, all the candidates were great. Some one day will make great superintendents, but the search committee was tasked with getting down to the candidates that we felt were top of the bunch, with qualities and qualifications that would benefit our school district, the teachers, and our students. And when I left that meeting, I was confident we had done that. The finalist who garnered that unanimous support is a multi-language learner herself, coming from immigrant parents. went to some of the best colleges in the area, then worked her way up in the Boston Public Schools. One of her references, a former Boston superintendent, said, "You won't find anyone more committed, dedicated, and impactful." She was named East Boston Times Woman of the Year. One reference said her core values are equity and opportunity. She has taught, she has principled, she has central office. My kids go to a dual language school here in this city, clearly because that is a priority of our demographic. And this candidate took a family school and transformed it into a successful dual language school. She has overseen budget, she has overseen school renovations, she has worked closely with teachers to help turn around their classrooms. When teachers needed support, they turned to her. As a language learner and a daughter of immigrants, she will be able to connect to our families like no superintendent has before her. She sat down during our interviews with confidence and conviction about education, her experience, and the goals she has for the city. As a search committee, we considered you our top choices. We don't have crystal balls to see what will happen, but we did what was asked of us and we did it well. I took it very seriously because the future of my children's education matters. Your committee decided to bring back candidates that are lovely again. But I hope tonight it has become clear that the candidate that the search committee unanimously said Pawtucket would be proud to have as our next superintendent is one of these two tonight. Thank you.
Up next is Ron. Ron, please let me know when you're ready, and I'm starting.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ron Beaupre, for the record. I am president of the Pawtucket Teaching Alliance and a fourth grade teacher at Agnes Little School. I am a proud graduate of the Pawtucket Public Schools. In March, the Pawtucket School Committee created a superintendent, and I'm going to go quick this time. In March, the Pawtucket School Committee created a superintendent search committee skillfully chaired by Ms. Doobie, charged with the task of the arduous work of reviewing applications, checking references, interviewing the best applicants from those received, and ultimately recommending the best candidates to become the next Pawtucket School Department superintendent. A committee of 9 individuals representing our students, families, educators, classified employees, and city and school government was formed. This committee collectively and separately spent an enormous amount of time combing through applications and resumes, calling references, conducting research, interviewing, debating, and deliberating, ultimately landing on the 2 recommendations as finalists made to this body on May 25th. Upon the presentation of the 2 recommendations, the school committee member, also a member of the subcommittee who voted in favor of both recommended candidates, stated, quote, "I don't think we found our next superintendent." She then went on to make a motion and received a second to bring forth 4 candidates previously interviewed by the subcommittee, ignoring the subcommittee's recommendations. Following this hypocrisy, perhaps a personal agenda or a favor for a friend, much discussion took place, with comments both against and in favor of the motion to bring in all 4 candidates for interviews before the full committee, rather than accept the recommendations made after tedious, vigilant consideration. Those against dismissing subcommittee recommendations stated, quote, "It's important to have processes. There's a reason you have different stakeholders at the table because you see different things. For this body to move forward and disregard the work that a subcommittee of stakeholders that involves parents, community members, teachers, administrators, non-certified and city representatives, because the work that was done didn't yield the result we wanted. So we will just go it on our own and arrive at a decision is a disservice to the idea that we listen to stakeholders when we make decisions," end quote. Another member said, quote, "Processes are important. We agreed to a process put forth a subcommittee, involved stakeholders who reached the decision," end quote. Those in favor of disregarding the subcommittee of stakeholders stated, quote, "I know how much time and effort the committee put into this work. I completely want to honor that, but as the full board, we do have the right to have an interview process, and I would like to be able to have the opportunity to interview the entirety of the candidates," end quote. Another candidate simply said, quote, "We are the 7 individuals who have the final say," end quote. The Pawtucket School Committee's own core beliefs and commitments state we will engage the community, including parents, caregivers, businesses, elected and appointed officials, civic and faith-based organizations, along with the district leaders, staff, and students to improve educational outcomes for our students. Yet, this committee, let me correct that, 5 members of this committee, one of whom was a member of the search committee voting in favor of the 2 recommended candidates, completely disregarded, disrespect, and undermined the work of the 9 individuals who painstakingly gave their valuable personal time to participate in this important process. I have recently been accused of not respecting the position of this committee. When a committee's position, taken by what appears to be personal motivation, has a potentially profound negative impact on those we serve and those we represent, you better believe it's not respected. The tail feather display of prowess shown by these members makes a silent statement to all of us, those we serve, those we represent, that we have no place in the decision-making process because, quote, you are the 7 members who have the final say. Merriam-Webster defines collaboration as working jointly with others or together, especially in an intellectual manner. The superintendent search committee established by this full school committee works collaboratively to arrive at the recommended finalists. However, 5 of you seemingly believe that the collaborative work of the 9 members of the subcommittee has no value. How is this collaboration? It is time for this committee to be collaborative, to do what is right for those we serve and those we represent. It is, in fact, what you were elected to do. Thank you for your time.
Thank you to all the speakers that, came forth. We'll go another housekeeping item. Please, we are in a library and I know that you've asked your students to be quiet in the library. We are going to be conducting interviews tonight. I ask that all side conversations, all cell phones, devices, please silence them and, no communication while we are asking questions and getting answered back from our 2, superintendent candidates. So I please ask you to respect that and just because we're in a library. With that, we do have to just, we have to take care of some old business. I need approval. Something happened last month. We had the wrong bill number, so I need approval. Ken Grant has been, spearheaded and been very, influential in making sure that we get ahead of and let the state know we support healthy meals for universal free school meals. So I need approval from the committee. I need a motion to approve school committee resolution to support House Bill 2023-8-5639. Right, motion. Motion from Ms. Bernolo, seconded by Ms. Doobie. Discussion. Mr. Charbonneau.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to echo what I had mentioned at the last meeting and recognize our state senator, Senator Kano, who was the lead sponsor of this bill, a friend of obviously this committee and this city. So I want to make sure we recognize Senator Kano.
Sorry about that, because very focused as the House, Senator Kano getting it over the Senate, you got it back. So, absolutely, kudos to Senator Kano and, committee member, Deputy Chair Grant, thank you very much again for bringing this before us. Any other conversation? All those in favor? All those opposed? Now, for the next item for business, on the new business, we're gonna conduct our first superintendent interview. Candidate number 1. Can I have Miss Patricia Royal? Is she, okay? Ms. Royal, thank you very much. Could you take a seat at the microphone? And there's water for you there if you need. If you don't mind, I'm going to go over the rules that the school committee has adopted for this interview. We're going to start, each school committee member can ask one question and then a follow-up that is associated with that original question for clarification. We are going to start from this point over, we're gonna go around clockwise. The way yesterday, so we'll go clockwise and end with, Ms. Connie. Again, one question per round, and the interview is the last 30 minutes. So I'm just gonna put the timer on. Are you ready? Okay. Thank you very much for coming today. Ms. Spinola.
Ms. Royal, thank you very much for being here today. I do have a couple of questions for you, but I'll start with the first one. What are your thoughts as far as suspensions, detentions, and the safety of our schools?
That's very important. Good evening, first of all, to everyone. Great question. Thinking, all of that is very important. I would like to say the most important part about that to focus on is how do we help students in different situations? So that will have to be taken on an individualized case. But making sure that we provide students with the services and resources that are needed. Sometimes we have to also include families in that conversation. And a part of those strategies to help kids do their best. So that would pretty much be an individualized answer. When it comes to that, we do have student code of conduct definitely. But I think that we, as educators, are always going to do what's best for students at all times. And that's what I believe. And at times, like I said, that's an individualized statement or question. But just looking at the data, the performance, what can we do, what strategies, what intervention, really doing all that we can do to ensure that students are successful.
Thank you.
Sure. Ms. Royale, welcome. And Royale, welcome. And thank you for being here this evening. I had an opportunity to watch what I thought was a pretty comprehensive interview that you did with the search committee. I thought you did very well in the interview. I wish you well during this process. I don't have any questions. Thank you.
So I know you had an opportunity to visit our schools. I'd like to hear your impressions of those visits and your takeaways for the Kentucky School Department.
I've been to some wonderful school sites. I went to a middle school, a couple of elementary schools, got to see a majority of the schools. When I say that you can feel the caring, the dedication, the loyalty to being the staff and the administrators have for the students, you can feel when you walk in the building. I think that's important to provide students and families with a welcoming environment. I felt that totally when I walked into those schools. The administrators were upbeat, they were positive, they were excited about the students, they were sharing all the end of the year events that were coming up. So it was a great experience. I definitely can see the hard work that is being done here in Kentucky, and I just want to be a part of that hard work that is happening.
Thank you very much for coming out today. My question is somewhat different from a question I was asking you during the first interview committee. I want to know your feeling, what you believe in, what you think of collective bargaining when it comes to running a school district. If you're asking to be the superintendent of numerous collective bargaining groups, what are your feelings and opinions on collective bargaining?
I think it's important. I think it's very important that we can work together in making decisions. I wasn't expecting some of the conversation, but I definitely believe and agree with a lot that was said. That it is important to take everyone's perspective in consideration when you're making decisions, and to also be transparent. Also communicate often throughout the process. I think that's important. I can't disagree with that. Relationship is going to be key for me. I am definitely a relationship person. I believe in everyone coming to the table for the common good of doing what's best for students. And collective bargaining is one of the structures that are in place for that to happen. And following the process procedures, making sure that everyone's voice is heard, make sure that those procedures to follow through. I totally, definitely agree with that. But like I said, the end goal, at the end of the day, is that we have to do this best possible.
Just a follow-up, are you saying you agree with collective bargaining?
Oh,
The
definitely,
right to collective bargaining? Okay, thank you.
definitely.
Hi, thank you for coming this evening. My question is about building a team. How would you say you would go about building the district to become one team and then kind of build your own team to help you support the people in the district?
Yes. Definitely starting with hitting the ground learning. Before I do anything, I want to learn about everything I can about our district, making sure that everyone's needs are met, everyone's voice are at the table that need to be heard, and also seeking out those quiet voices that often are not heard. We have to build relationships, make sure that we are moving toward a common goal. At every decision I make, the nucleus of all of my decisions are what's best for students. But at the same time, it's also best that we do for what's important for those people that are on the front line, the teachers. And I'm glad they're in here because they are the most important person that are in those buildings, are those classroom teachers. Next to a teacher are leaders, because they are the front line. They make the magic happen in the classrooms. So I feel as a superintendent, it's my job to make sure that their needs are met, that they get the support, that they get whatever it is they need to make sure that kids are meeting their goal beyond what their expectations are. So I think I have to hit the ground learning first, meeting people, starting to build those relationships. And I think it's important, and not only that you build relationships, that you build lasting relationships. It's not an exchange. I'm not a transactional person. I believe in that we work together for a common goal. And the more we work together, the more transparent, the more we collaborate, the more we communicate. That's how we get our goal accomplished.
Well, thank you for being here. So I did have one question for Pierre, but I'm gonna ask another question. So you talked about how you're a relationship person. You talked about that a lot in your first interview, and you just talked about it again now. I'm wondering how are you gonna build those relationships if you were to get this position? How are you gonna build this relationships, knowing that all of these people were here tonight to kind of say that you're not worthy to be here? And then, that's a subcommittee. That's a subcommittee voting you to not be here. Is that better? I don't know.
Well, I would like to say,
Let me rephrase that. Okay, excuse me. Thank you. So I think this is very intimidating, what is going on right now, right? So coming into the interview here, knowing that this whole crowd of people are here to say that they disagreed with the 5 of us that made the motion to bring you here. Right? How are you going to build those relationships knowing that?
coming into a district, first of all, let me back up a little bit. I applied to be a superintendent of Kentucky because of the values, the vision, and the mission of this district aligns with my core values. And the people that are in this district are people I want to work for. I work for them. I work for the student. I work for the family. In order to build relationships, I'm serious. I hate my back being to you all, because I'll be working for you all. But I just need you to know that I'm here to work for you all. You all make the magic happen. I can't do this job alone. No way I could. I have to hear from you all. I'm a teacher at heart. I started as a kindergarten. So everything we need to know is in kindergarten first. But I taught elementary. I supervised K through 12 administrators. I know what it takes, but I know the one thing is that we gotta put a belief system in our students. And the first person that's on the front line of that are my teachers. I gotta make sure that you all on board with my vision. We understand, I'm allowing your vision, your mission. There's no way I can do this. I need you guys. And I intend for my schedule to be busy. Cause I wanna hear from you. I wanna know, okay, Ms. Rowe, what is it you need that you didn't get? Or what is it that we can sit down and talk about to make a difference in your everyday work? You spend more time in your school than you do with your family. I was a teacher. So I gotta make sure that you're getting what you need to make it happen for every single kid. It's about every kid that walks. We public education, we take everyone. That's hard. What you do is very hard. I know that. So I'm here. If I get this job, trust me, you will not regret it. I'm gonna work 110% for each and every person in this room. If I do something that's wrong, tell me. I am here to learn. When I say I plan to hit this ground running, I'm hitting this ground running, learning. I need to know what it is that I need to do to make this a better work environment for you. So that, because there's a book that I read where it says, if you don't feed the teachers, they eat the kids. I believe that. I gotta be here to make sure you all are happy, because you make them happy. If it's more funding, whatever it is what we need to let me know. I'm a very transparent person. I love to communicate. I love people. I'm a people lover. I'm a people person. That's who I am. And if I'm not chosen, whoever y'all go with, I'm still gonna be wishing the best for the kids of the state. Period. So thank you. I hope I answered the question.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. My question today, being a data person, is, after looking at the Kentucky School Department data, what do you see as the largest area for attention and growth?
Graduation rate. And I say that not specifically looking at the number. I say that because it takes everyone, starting in kindergarten, focus on improving academics. That would be one of our areas, like I said, it would take everyone. It's just not the 12th grade teachers that make it happen. It's all of us. So collectively, we will look at things, doing things differently. Sometimes just a little tweak here and there. Or maybe guidance counselors create this process so we can better track our 9th graders or our 10th graders or middle school. Where are we with our middle school? So it takes everyone. So when I say graduation, I want to just go straight to the number. I think it's way deeper than that, but that's our end goal. That capping down is the end goal. So that would be my end goal focus.
Joe? Just, we're at 17 minutes.
Okay, so,
What? 17 minutes.
as you've seen, going on the district, we are very active in our facilities committee and with building opportunities. Can you briefly tell us what experience, if any, that you have had with that?
Yes, I had an opportunity of converting in middle school to elementary school. So construction, resources, materials, picking out colors, carpet. I've been in the work. It is very rewarding at the end. And I think facilities is important. Kids need to have and feel like they're in a safe place. Cleanliness, beautifying the school, making it warm. I learned that from one of my kids that goes to the hospital often. My oldest daughter, she had a mass on her brain. So we went to the children's hospital, and that's when I learned that the aesthetics of a room makes a huge difference, down to colors. So that was interesting to me because I was like, oh, I never thought about that place. So when I became a principal, I changed just the physical environment of a room changes some students' behavior automatically. So I think that's important, the facilities, and it was very, very refreshing to see all the work that has happened and took it around the facilities.
Thank you.
Mr. Charbonneau, anything?
So, Ms. Maria, I'll just yield my time back to you. During that interview with the search committee, is there anything that you wish you had said differently, or, in other words, I'm gonna give you the time back just to discuss the interview if you want, or anything you might have said that you want to clarify on?
Yes, thank you. I just want to add that I'm passionate about what I do. This is, everyone sitting in here, this is a calling. Everyone can't walk in and do anybody's job in any building at any time. To me, education is a calling. I'm passionate about this work. I'm passionate about making sure that every kid is successful. I am passionate about teachers getting what they need because they are important. I'm passionate about leaders getting what they need. And in that work, I just want to highlight the importance of coming together. We don't always have to agree. It's okay to disagree, as long as we take that, we can take a different path, but as long as we get to the end goal, which is doing what's best for students. I think that's important. That's just how I always make my decisions. Is it going to be best for students? I may not agree with the avenue you want to take, but if it's a different avenue, I'm okay with that. As long as the end goal is what's best for students.
Thank you, Mr. Charbonneau. That was my question, so I yield my time now.
Thank you very much. You did answer somewhat about, the relationship that you believe needs to be built between the city administration, the school committee. Can you just elaborate more? What do you think the role of the superintendent to the school committee, communication wise, looks like under your leadership if you become a superintendent?
That definitely would be my first step, is finding out how each one of you want me to communicate. Because I think it's my job to meet your needs. It's my job to communicate as much as you need. That is like in the forefront. I have to make sure that my committee is well aware of what is going on. So I'm kind of like a liaison between the day-to-day work of the district and then seeing the finance piece and overseeing what's going on in district with the community. So it's important that we start building relationships with each other, making sure that I'm meeting your needs as I should be, and I'm putting forth whatever the desires are for improving or maintaining what's going on in our district. That's my role and that's my job. So it's important that we start our relationship from day one. I'm finding out more about you. Like I said, I'm a relationship person, so I need to know. So one committee member say, well, I want you to just give me my memo once a week. Another committee member say, okay, I need it twice a week. I'm okay with that. My job is to give you what you need, and so that you're well informed, so we can make informed decisions together.
Thank you.
My question is about the budget. So, the last few years, we've had to, the students and everyone in the communities have had to deal with COVID. With that came a lot of federal funding. With that federal funding came a lot of, supports for the classrooms, ESSER funds, some things to do to the buildings and things like that. Unfortunately, going forward, most of this money is going to go away. How do you see yourself working with your team to try to make sure that the students in the district still get what they need?
Oh, definitely. Well, first, finding out what we have done thus far in details, and then moving forward, looking at what we need to keep in order, again, to make sure students are getting what they need and what our instructional staff are getting what they need. There are other options, grants, there are different things that we can do to fill in those gaps. Sometimes it's all about moving funding from one source to another. So I'll have to get into the weeds of that. But there are definitely ways that we can make that happen, most definitely.
So can you, what is your experience with community schools? How do you think they could add value, how more community schools could add value in Suffolk?
Okay, stop smiling because that was one of the reasons why I did apply for the ticket, because myself, I opened a community school. And that is one of my mantras, at the top of every letterhead, said, we educate the whole child. When you go to community school, it is all about bringing resources into the schools and then the schools going into the community so we can build a bridge between the school and the community. That takes a lot of making sure that we have the resources that families and students need. It's the wraparound services for the kids, but it's also wraparound services for families. So for example, what we did in my school was we had a parent resource center. And in that resource center, I set it up. I put computers in there, and it was all about helping our parents get their GED. It was all about helping our parents get job applications. We also hired a nurse, we got a full-time nurse to provide some of those services to the families. So it's all about finding out what families need in that particular community and then working through. I also hired an additional social worker, and my social worker was slightly different than everyone else's. When I hired my social worker, they made very clear that one big part of your job is bringing the resources to our families. So my social worker got into the community, so if they needed their light bill paid, she knew how it was. And I called it hand-in-hand support. So it wasn't about just passing a parent a card and saying, oh, here's where you go and get your light bill paid. They took them there, stood side by side, hand in hand, and made sure they received the services. So I think it's important that wraparound service not only happen for the kids, but also for the families. Because when families are better, kids are better. It also impacts academics. So I was able to do extended learning program during the week. I was also allowed to hire retired teachers that came in during the day, and also afforded me the opportunity to do Saturday Academy, where we did Math and Science Academy. Because when you do that, it afforded me to bring in some of the resources. So after every science activity, my kids got to eat what they created at Saturday school. But it's all about those wraparound services, not only for students, but also for those families.
Well, you have 10 minutes, 10 minutes more. Go ahead, Ms. Connie.
In Pawtucket, I'm sure you know, we do have a couple of dual language programs in some of our elementary schools. Could you share some of your experience leading dual language programs?
Yes, we currently have a couple of dual language schools in the district that are currently working in. It's an awesome program. It is definitely designed to meet the needs of our students. I think the continuation of providing them with those strategies, those strategies are important. And then also supporting teachers and finding out what they need to continue to be successful with the MLL program. I've worked very closely with MLL. We've expanded our MLL program currently in our current district because it is a very important component in meeting the needs of our students. So that's been my experience also with funding those positions as well. So like I said, it's possible. It's just about setting those goals and expectations to meet the needs of our students. And that's a program that needs to be.
Ms. Bernal.
So, were you to get this position, how often do you believe that a superintendent needs to be in the school and visible to staff?
Highly visible. Like I said, I'm a teacher at heart. That's who I am first before and I walk in several positions, but I'm a teacher at heart. My happy place is the classroom. My happy place is the school. And I would visit schools just to touch base, get the feel, find out what teachers need. Sometimes that's the only time, they have something. Can I put you aside for a minute? Sure. And sometimes you get important information just on those informal calls. Those are important, and that's plus building relationships. I need to be in the building to see what's going on. I need to see, and I'm not meaning from a, evaluative point. I mean from a relationship building point. And I need to get to know my people that I'm working for better. And in order to do that, they have to see me. We need to talk. We gotta see each other. So that's my aspirations in the schools.
Can I ask the second part?
Yield my time, Ms. Fenella.
So, okay, quick. So. Over the past few years, because of all the activities that there has been in our district. There are a lot of meetings going on. There are meetings with RISE, there are meetings with, I don't know, lots of people. But it seems like our administrators are forever on the phone and forever in meetings, and they're going from one meeting to another meeting to another meeting, which would make you invisible. How do you propose to balance that?
So one way to balance that would be to streamline as many meetings as possible. So that's getting to know each purpose of each meeting, because sometimes we got a meeting over here and they happen to be the same thing that's going to be discussed in this particular meeting. So finding out what those purposes of those different meetings are, how often are we pulling our leaders and teachers out of the building? And then how can we streamline this process? So looking at the purposes of the meeting, the length of time of the meeting, frequency of the meeting, outcomes of the meeting. Why is this meeting needed? Because there's a lot of meetings that go on that's not even needed. Some meetings can just put on a memo and send through email. I totally get it. We have a whole lot of meetings going on, but it can be streamlined, it can be cut down, because again, it is not pushing what students need. It is not pushing what teachers need. Then we can put it in a memo, send it out, and then we'll keep moving forward. So the first step will be to find out the purpose of each meeting, so we can start looking at, and then getting feedback from the people that's going to work. Do you feel this meeting is important? Or do you feel that we need to meet this often? So it's just having that clarity, that communication, and that open line of collaboration around what is needed in each meeting.
Thank you.
Julie, anything? I'm all set. You all set?
I'm all set.
And I'll get another round like this. No one else has any questions from the body? With that, thank you very much. You, I'm more than welcome to, leave, we'll be in touch. If you have any final statements to say to the board, feel free to take your time right now. If we can get it in under 4 minutes and 17 seconds.
First, I just want to say thank you for this opportunity. I really appreciate, I felt the gentleman, speak. I felt the room. I just want to say thank you. I am here to serve. I believe that, superintendent is us, serving the community. I wouldn't be here, or anybody would be here if it was not for our students and our families. They're first, and then, like I said, the leaders and teachers, you are my heart. If I get a job, you'll see it. You'll know it. You'll become best friends. But it's important that, like I said, I just wanted to say thank you for this opportunity. Just to be sitting in this seat, I'm blessed. And I just say thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. In the room, or ladies, set her up in another room, they set the doctor up in another room, or she. Dr. McNeil, are you in the room? He is a doctor in the house. Wait, you. Doctor, thank you very much for joining us tonight. If I'll go over what is gonna happen going forward, the committee knows, but we set this for 30 minutes, it'll be a 30-minute interview. We're gonna ask each, school committee member is gonna ask you one question each in a clockwise motion. We're gonna start with Ms. Manolo and end with Ms. Connie. The committee member can ask one question and a follow-up that is associated with the original question, get more clarification if needed. Again, that's for 30 minutes, and then at the end, I'll let you be able to have, some parting words, okay? Are you all set to, go?
Yes,
You ready?
thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Manolo, go ahead.
So thank you for being here, Dr. McNeil. I did a revisit of the interviews today, just to make sure I was on the right page. But one of the things that wasn't really talked about during the interviews were suspensions, detentions, and school safety. So can you give me your thoughts on those three things?
So I do think that the number one priority of this job is school safety. So, that's first and foremost, making sure that we're working with law enforcement, with our leaders, with, the community on school safety. So that's by far the number one job that the superintendent has. And we need to make sure that we are, making sure our families feel safe, sending their students to school and our staff feel safe in our school. With respect to detention and suspensions, it's really important that our students be able to be in school. So I would say that we have to look at what are our current practices and what are we doing to amend our students' behavior so that they can restore any offense that they might do in the building, and really consider how does the discipline reflect the action of the student. So I think that that's a very good question, and we need to be able to assure that students, staff, and families feel safe in the school, and we need to make sure that we are addressing the behavior such that students can repair any damage that they do, as well as be successful if they can't return to school. We're also addressing their needs there.
Thank you.
Good evening, Dr. McNeil. Welcome to Pawtucket, and thank you for being here. I had the opportunity to watch what I thought was a pretty comprehensive interview with the search committee. I thought you performed well. I wish you well during this process. I don't have any questions for you.
Dr. McNeil, I know that you had an opportunity to visit our schools. I'd like to hear your impressions after those visits, just in general of the Pawtucket schools, areas that you identified as strengths or areas you identified as that might be targets, if you were to get this position.
Thank you so much. I want to acknowledge Superintendent Mercer, who was a phenomenal host of my trip around Pawtucket. And we visited the Green School and the Potter Burns School, and Dr. Jacobs toured me around the school, as did Mrs. Pico. And I continue to be impressed at the resources available to Pawtucket schools. Not saying that they're 100% comprehensive, I have to learn more about that, but it is clear that the community supports the school, and that there's a great love and devotion of the staff and the leaders in the school for the students and the families in the community. I was impressed at how many people I met along the way that either went to the Pawtucket schools or grew up in their practice to become from a teaching assistant to a teacher or principal, as it was for Mrs. Depot. So the commitment that I see, the love and passion for the work is here. So that was a wonderful strength. I know some of the questions that came up, and I also enjoyed very much going to Green because it is the dual language school. So I got to interact with some of the students in Spanish, which I very much enjoyed, and so did the students. I think that they were happy to be able to talk to somebody else who was visiting the classroom. So I still have wonderings. I was only in a couple of classrooms. I did get to interact with students and meet some of the staff. And I did see a few people here who I did meet today, so I was excited to see that. I didn't get a chance to say hello. There's a lot of people here today, which is another thing that to me means that the staff and the families are really committed to whoever is the next leader here. And I think that that's really powerful and important, because whoever becomes the next superintendent, perhaps it shall be me, will need the support of this community to transition into this role. So some of the areas that I still have questions around are the differences in the academic success of students across the schools. And how are we supporting that? I learned a little bit more about some of the positions being in ESSER funds, and how do we make sure that we continue to support the schools, at least in the fashion that they're currently supported, is concerned for the next superintendent. And I'm curious to learn more about the instructional practices and the way we support our teachers in the classroom through coaching, through interventions for students. And those are the things I'm still wondering about. And that I learned also through the search process that are a concern of the community, the school committee, and perhaps everyone.
All right, thank you very much again, Doctor, for coming down to Pawtucket to be interviewed for this extremely incredible opportunity to be a superintendent of the best school district in the state. I'm going to give you a completely open-ended question. I want to know your belief, what you think, where you feel about collective bargaining when it comes to running a school district. You're going to have multiple collective bargaining groups. I would like to hear your opinion on it.
Sure, I think that we need to do what I am the lead negotiator for the Needham Public Schools. And I have very much enjoyed that process. I have built a relationship with our association in Needham that is very positive. And I think that we need to do what's best for staff, for students, and for our regarding our fiscal responsibilities. So I think that is not done at the table. I think that is done prior to the table and building relationships and making sure we're not using the table as a stage. I think we need to be honest in what we can do and honest in what we can't do. And again, I think it starts way before the table in establishing a positive relationship with the associate of the union in this case, or those that you're bargaining with, so that we're not always starting on 0.000%, but also what is realistic, and have an understanding that we will do the best we can for our staff, so that we can do the best we can for our students, and we will be fiscally responsible while doing it.
All right, just a follow-up on that. You are a lead negotiator in Needham?
Yeah.
On how many contracts? And I should know this, since I apologize, I don't, my ignorance, what's the size of the, body that you, negotiate with? What's the teaching for, you need them?
We are, well, we're about 1,100 people, who work for NIA. So it depends. So the teachers is our largest pool, probably around 650.
I'm not gonna,
Wait,
yeah, I
no.
just,
Yeah.
wanted to see what the, what if it's close to the company. Thank you very much, Ian.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you for coming tonight. In regards to building, building teams, we have, employees and associates that are out in the buildings, out in the field with the kids every day. And then we have staff that is at the administration building. How do you see yourself, building those relationships and building those teams with the schools and the administration?
I have to say, it was very much turned around a few times today as I was watching the administration building. There's a lot of doors and entrances and exits. So I got to meet a lot of people, and I know that if I'm elected or selected as the superintendent, that I would have many more to meet. So I would seek our opportunities to meet casually and both professionally with the teams so that I can better understand what the needs are of the different constituent groups. So opportunity meet and greets with coffee, as well as, meetings to purposely make sure that I am meeting all the constituent groups. Because one of the groups I did not hear, actually, I did not get an opportunity really to talk to the staff in the schools. I did visit a couple of classrooms, but I didn't get a chance to talk to teachers too much. I also didn't get a chance to talk to our senior leadership groups, and I'm really interested in hearing their voice and what their needs are for the district. And also I haven't had any chance to really interact with parents. So that's another group that I would like to spend some time with, to better understand what their needs are and how they've interacted with schools.
Good to see you again.
Thank you.
So my question is, what is your experience with community schools and how do you think they would add value in your perspective?
So, interesting that you should ask that. My mom started the first community school in Boston, which is the Gardner Pilot School now. And certainly when I was a principal, I tried to also think about how do I do that as a leader to really start bringing in the community to the schools, better support the families and their needs. So I have a lot of experience on the back end of leadership and on the front end of leadership. It is definitely something that has really expanded in the Boston community. And as a leader, what I tried to do is find out what were the needs of my students or the schools that I led, and try to come up with partnerships that would best address their needs. At that time, it was mostly around mental health, trauma, as well as medical needs. Even right now, we have a lot of students coming from, not a lot, but we have students coming to Needham High School who can't play sports because they don't have access to a medical provider or resources. So we are trying to connect in the community around addressing that so that students can participate in another social event, especially when they need to build into a community. Sports and outside club activities are really important. So partnering with all of the resources available through the Pawtucket schools, universities that are close by, and trying to meet their needs. It made me think, and I'm digressing a little bit, but today I was told that the CCE program is going to expand to
developing a pipeline for, well, I call it developing a pipeline for educators. So I'm excited about really thinking about how do we start thinking about our kindergartners and our preschoolers as future educators in Pawtucket. So really thinking about how do we do that, and that would involve bringing in community members, bringing in families to have these conversations, because we need to do that in order to find the right people to work in our schools and with kids.
Hello. After looking at the Pawtucket School Department data, what do you see as the largest area for attention growth?
So I'd like to spend a little bit more time looking at how our English learners are doing and performing. It is my experience that when English learners graduate from learning English, they tend to outperform their academic peers. And one of the areas of concern that I couldn't quite get into all the details of is what is the breakdown within both race, special education, of what's underneath the data, like where's the overlap of the students, because I was curious about the progress of our white students, our Black students, and our English learners. So I think there's more I need to unpack there. I really like data. I think it's really important that our staff understand what our data is saying. And given the access that I've had to it so far, it's only raised questions about what's happening with the data. I have noticed that some schools are data is higher than other schools' data. So what are those practices? I mentioned this before, and I wholeheartedly believe this, is that we have great practices in Pawtucket, and we need to figure out how to share those practices and create opportunities for staff to visit each other and see what's happening in different schools, who's successful with what communities, and develop those practice classrooms where people can come and visit and learn and grow together. So I do have some questions. There are graduation rate, I think I saw today was 72%, which is okay, but what's going on with that other percentage? We need to continue to look at who's succeeding and who's not, and think about how do we better support them.
Okay, Ms. Miller, play around with 15 minutes.
Okay. As a superintendent, how often do you feel you should be visiting schools and be visible to the students and the staff there? Daily. How would you do that?
Have to start here now.
There are ways to, you have to be in the schools, you have to know what's going on. Okay, so the second part of the question is, put it back for the reason, but over the past few years, our administrative staff is bogged down with meetings. They are going to a meeting at 8, another one at 9, another one at 10, and their days are consumed in meetings. How would you, given that schedule of meetings, how would you then go out and visit schools? Well, one, the meeting could be at the school, and the meeting could involve visiting classrooms. So we have to put into practice. We can't be in a tower away from where the work is actually happening. The most important work that we do in the district is in the classroom. The most important people working with students are the teachers, and we need to figure out what's happening there, how to support them, how to build their practice so that our students can succeed. Thank you.
Dr. O'Neill, I will give my time back to you in the sense of, during that interview with the search committee, is there anything that you wish to clarify now? Or is there something you want to say that you didn't have a chance to say during that interview? You want to come back?
Thank you so much. Oh, there was a lot of reflection on what I said and what I could have said better. So
I will say that I believe the reason I would like to come to Pawtucket is because I have gained a lot of experience through my work in Boston for 25 years as a teacher, as an administrator, as a principal, and in central office, both K to 12. I've also was able to gain more experience in central office by going to the Needham Public Schools and work on negotiation. And also system-wide structures and supports. I did do that work in Boston, in particular around the budget. And another reason I would like to be able to lead this district is because I am an English learner. My parents came to this country and met actually and married in Boston. They're Cuban and I am first generation. And I think we have many students who might have a similar story in this district. And I would like to support them and all other students in this district to succeed. I understand the struggle of being an immigrant and also, you know, seeking education and support. I've had my own struggles with reading that had nothing to do with being an English learner, but more I've learned from my own children, more about dyslexia and the struggles of what it is to overcome reading challenges. And I believe that all students can learn and grow, and we need to create the environment for them to do that. And from what I have seen in Pawtucket, there is will, there is desire, there's interest to collaborate and work together to improve this district from where it is to where it will go next. Everything that I have seen so far indicates that. So I appreciate the opportunity to kind of clarify my history a little bit and the struggles that I had in my own life, which there were many more. And just want to say that I continue to be a learner, and I don't believe that I have all the answers, but I know that there are a lot of people in this room who can come together and create better structures and systems to better support our students who might be struggling right now.
Thank you. So your experience has been in Massachusetts schools. I'm sure you're aware that there's been a lot of discussion about Rhode Island using the Massachusetts model, about this idea that Rhode Island needs to move closer to what Massachusetts does with schools. I'd like to just hear your perspective on that, whether you agree wholeheartedly, whether you disagree, or whether it's somewhere in the middle.
So I'm quite familiar with both the standards and expectations and teacher evaluation and the evaluation process in Massachusetts. I don't think it's necessarily a bad system, but even that system has changed over time. I was in Massachusetts when the MCAS first came to be. I was a teacher through all of the iterations that it's currently been under, as well as the changes that have currently happened to raise expectations for our students in this last year. I'm not sure that I can give you a firm answer on that because I don't fully understand what is the expectation, how we're playing out what's happening in the standards here and the expectations around teacher evaluation here. I actually did try to delve into that, but I didn't have Google access to certain things. So I do believe that we need to have standards. I do believe that we need to measure those standards, and we need that baseline to know if we're making progress for our students. But where I have a challenge is when, and I mentioned this before in the last interview, is that when we use those things to punish our schools and our communities and our students themselves. So there are
good aspects to the work that's happening in Massachusetts, and there are challenges. So when we're holding English language learners to take a test in English 1 year after they're starting to learn a language, there's something wrong with that system. And then we're holding schools accountable for that. When students are on an alternative assessment and you get the points in Massachusetts for passing the alternative assessment, but yet it's considered a 0 for the school. I have an issue with that. So it all, so there's pluses and minuses to all systems, and we need to figure out how to work either within that system or the system that is chosen to be worked with, to make sure that we understand we're not putting students at risk, and penalizing our schools and our staff because of it. So I have seen it play out in different ways.
Thank you. What is your expectations? How do you see the relationship with the superintendent and the school committee? Communication wise, how we interact, what do you see?
So I've seen some really good models of late that I would like to see in place. First, I'd like to make sure that there's opportunities for monthly visits to schools with the superintendent, going back to visiting schools. So different schools, different member, so that we are both seeing what the needs are in the schools and what the good work that's happening in the schools. I also would like to see communication on a weekly basis to account for time. So where is time being spent in the schools? With respect to the school committee, I'm not 100% sure of the processes, but I think we should receive a packet the Friday before school committee meeting with all the information in it that you can review, so that you know what's coming up next. I think there should be meetings at least 1 week before with the chair and the superintendent to make sure that the agenda is clear and all the information we're preparing for the next meetings and going forward. So I'm very much aware that the responsibility of the school committee is to hire, fire, and evaluate the superintendent, as well as the budgetary responsibility. So it needs to be clear that we're communicating all of those aspects of the work, as well as developing policy that supports the good practice in the schools. So I think regular communication, I hope you hear that, as well as face-to-face visits in our schools is an important part of the work that we need to do together, as well as celebrate our students and our staff. So I hope we get a chance to do that here.
So I'd like to kind of switch over to budget. As we've seen over the past few years, a lot of the school districts receive quite a bit of federal funds. Those funds were, used for many things. But now that we're, getting further and further away from COVID, those federal funds are going to stop. So how do you see you working with the budget on things that might have been put in, and working with the city and the school committee on our budgets?
Yeah, and that's a really good question, and I did hear conversations about that today regarding what some of the positions were that came in with the ESSER funds. I did try to ask which positions have some of the positions already been turned over to be operating, and some have, but I'm also aware that some have not. And I do think that we need to look at what are the positions that were not, and what are how do we prioritize those positions in terms of their impact to students and staff, and figure out are there are there ways to moving forward to move some of those into operating, or how do we seek one-time funds again to see if we need to support them, and also to look at our, budget generally to see, is there a way to trim if that is possible, or rethink how we use certain positions or create certain positions to recoup any, loss that people might feel as a result of not having access to ESSER funds anymore. So it's still something that I have a lot of questions about. And I couldn't delve that deeply in my 2.5 hour visit today. So, but we did get talking a little bit about that because I think that is a concern for all districts right now.
Martha, 6 minutes. I don't have any more questions. Thank you so much. Attorney?
You have spoken a bit about, working with MLL students and MLL learning yourself. We do have, a couple dual language programs here. Could you please share with us, your experience in, leading dual language programs?
So it's interesting. So I both supervised 2 dual language schools in Boston, and I started a dual language school when I was in East Boston. And I asked about some of the challenges that I faced when I was looking at dual language schools. One is no one raised these flags to me here. These were my personal experiences in doing this work. One is sharing with, in my case, it was Spanish-speaking families, that we want to support literacy in the native language, and that won't make them, won't allow students to fall behind, that it actually will support their development of English in the future. So that was a challenge that I saw, not hugely. Mostly I found that in East Boston, many of our Spanish-speaking families wanted their students to be able to maintain their home language, and become literate in English. The other was fear from some of our non-Spanish speaking families as to whether or not it would impair their students' ability to learn and grow in English, and would it impact their scores on different types of tests. So we did a lot of education around dual language programs and the benefits of dual language education and the opportunity that it brings students in the future. So those are some of the challenges that we face. The other was about hiring staff and finding staff who can teach the other language. And there's where, again, I think pipeline thinking about who is currently in our district, how do we support our non-English speaking community members to consider becoming teaching assistants, maybe becoming teachers here, or developing our own students to become teachers in the future. So really thinking about that pipeline and creating opportunities for students to think about education in the future, which we need to promote. What's the rest of the question? I'm sorry.
I feel like you answered it unless there's any. The question was about your experience in dual language programs.
So then the other piece I'll say, there's more to that, because also assessment in both languages is something that you have to do. And Massachusetts has done some good work around the seal of biliteracy and giving students an opportunity to graduate through a dual language program K-12, and having a celebration of multilingual ability, which I think is also something that we need to think about as we're growing our students in the elementary program.
Thank you. There's under 2 minutes for the 30-minute time. Do you have any?
That's the last same question. So, as you've seen, as you've traveled the district today, you visited 2 refurbished schools. We have another one that was just built. We have another one being built, and then we are in the process of working on the unified high school. So what is your experience with building, the construction, in the school?
Well, I'm sorry to say that it wasn't in Boston. With 129 schools, it took a long time to build schools in Boston. But in Needham, we are doing a lot of construction. I am not leading that work, but I'm certainly privy to that work. So this would be probably my biggest learning edge, is to really get more hands-on with this. In our newest building, named after Sunita Williams, who is an astronaut who grew up and went to the Needham Public Schools and is an astronaut right now, she's going up. We did have some HVAC systems, but I think that Pawtucket might be familiar with some of these challenges. So, and that was just built in the last year, and I think we've been in that building for 2 years. And we're currently renovating the central office building that was much needed. So we are currently under construction. What I have seen works best is working closely with the community and the builders, and being part of the process all along the way to make sure that we are learning from our mistakes and thinking about the future and how we can make the most of the resources that the city is giving us.
Thank you very much. That's the time. We've heard about saying, HVAC systems in our city.
Just a little.
All right. Doctor, thank you very much. I will afford you, 2 minutes. The other candidate was, do you have any final words to us? Can you give us 2 minutes, to the board?
Okay, so first, I just want to thank Dr. Jacobs, Mrs. Tico, Superintendent Mercer, Assistant Superintendent Ramsey, and all of the people that I met today for their time, their interest, their enthusiasm for the work here in Pawtucket. I believe that I bring certain skills and abilities that will support the work that's happening here in Pawtucket, but I certainly hope that you will make the decision that you feel is the best for the Pawtucket Public Schools. And I really want the best for the students here. They are cared for, they are loved. People work really hard. That was evident in the building visits that I did today. There is passion for the work here and commitment. And that is something that needs to be celebrated and used to promote the good work that's happening here. So I just thank you very much for this opportunity to be able to speak here, and I'm very happy to see the excitement and enthusiasm and the interest that the community has in the next superintendent. And I hope it will give me the opportunity to think about how I could do that more in the future. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to recess to executive session in accordance the general law, pursuant to general law 42-46-A/5A1 for the discussion of superintendent candidate qualification 1. Second reason, pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42-46-5A8, student appeal. So Mr. Charbonneau moves to adjourn, seconded by Mr. Stube. For all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? We're in a recess for executive session.